Hi, I'm Matt Shepard. Coming up on Shep, Shower, and Shave, why the Lions must win the division, where I was wrong on Sunday, and wondering where the anger is for one of the game's very best. Not necessarily football-wise either. That's coming up next on Shep, Shower, and Shave, brought to you by Northwestern Tech. Northwestern Tech, HVAC is all they teach. They've perfected their hands-on program for the last 38 years. Get more in tune with what's going on and how you can change your career at northwesterntech.edu or call them at 248-358-4006. We're also brought to you by Hungry Howie's. Folks, it's that time of year where your child is trying to raise some money for his or her sports team or school group. How do you do it? Well, Hungry Howie's has a great way. Go to doughrazor.com. That's doughrazor.com. And we're brought to you by Nate Noth Designs. Nate Noth does a great job of making the type of logo that can make your business proud. He's done it with Shep, Shower, and Shave. You can check that out and see his work on Instagram or on Facebook. Look, I thought the Lions would struggle yesterday. I thought they would struggle, especially after finding out TJ Lang was inactive. You and I both know this team is beat up, bumped, bruised, scraped, and looking a lot less like it was at the beginning of the season because of those injuries. So saying that the bye comes at a perfect time is not a stretch and has been echoed by many. Glover Quinn left with a concussion. He needs to get healthy. Golden Tate left with a shoulder injury. He needs to get healthy. The offensive line is in shambles, and obviously the franchise quarterback is been beaten to a pulp as well. This team didn't look good in any facet against New Orleans. You would be convinced of that after watching just probably the first quarter of play. They turned it over too many times. They couldn't stop the run. They couldn't cover anybody, even though Drew Brees threw for less yards than his team ran for. When's the last time that ever happened in New Orleans? Here's a guy who consistently throws for over 4,000 yards. Consistently one of the best completion percentages year in and year out, and actually is the record holder right now in the NFL. And yet Detroit did a good job in the passing game, but that's primarily because New Orleans just said, we're beating the snot out of you up front. Why don't we just keep running the football? And that's what they did. There's a couple of different ways to look at it. New Orleans is getting better, or your team is getting worse. So 3-3 at the break, and I've said this for a while now. If this team was 500 after 6 or even 8 games, you should feel pretty good about it. That said, that 8th game is against the Green Bay Packers. And the Green Bay Packers just lost the best quarterback in the NFL. We'll get to that coming up here. But Detroit right now, when you look at it, has to feel like they've dodged a little bit of a bullet. Why? Well, because they've played the entire season so far without their franchise left tackle. They just lost a game without their best right guard, and one of the best right guards in all of football. TJ Lang, based on Pro Football Focus, was the second-rated guard in the NFL. They've won some games without their starting middle linebacker, Jared Davis, and he struggled a little bit. They're winning games without their offense really clicking, if you think about it, and they've kind of gone off the rails to a certain extent without Kenny Golladay. Kenny Golladay comes back, there's a red zone threat, right? Taylor Decker comes back. You hope that he fixes at least a little bit of the pressure that Matt Stafford is starting to feel, and he's starting to feel it because he's been sacked over and over and over again. 5 sacks against the Saints, 6 sacks against the Panthers, 6 sacks 3 weeks ago. Now, remember this, though. Sometimes those sacks can be very misleading. I didn't think the sack in the end zone that was stripped and then recovered for a touchdown on the 3rd play of the game for Detroit was necessarily the offensive line's fault. I thought that was Matthew Stafford needing to get rid of the football. He didn't. It cost them. His play in general might have cost them because his play allowed 3 interceptions, 2 of them tipped, 2 fumble recoveries by the opposition. That's 5 turnovers by your quarterback, 5 turnovers by your best player. Can't happen. But the injuries are all part of the game. You know that, and so do I. There's plenty of teams trying to deal with all kinds of injuries, all right, and trying to play through it and doing a good job of playing through it. My problem with Detroit's issues right now and where it's led them to losses to Atlanta, Carolina, and New Orleans. And some of you may be collectively going, Well, at least it's not in the division. No, but those three teams that I just mentioned will be part of the NFC playoff mix. And it means you do not have the tiebreaker against those teams. It's not like you get a chance to beat them a second time like you would a Chicago, Green Bay, or Minnesota. You're done playing those teams. That means if it comes down to a tiebreaker situation where you need a wild card spot, they're going to own the upper hand. That's why Detroit must win the division. The good news for Lions fans is the fact that they haven't played the Packers yet. They haven't played the Bears yet, and they've already beaten Minnesota on the road. Now, the Vikings are starting to get a little healthier. Vikings might get Teddy Bridgewater back. I doubt it's going to happen for Sam Bradford, and Case Keenum's played well enough, but Teddy Bridgewater's actually progressing further along than many people thought. So this is what Detroit is faced with. They've put themselves in this situation. They had a chance to beat Atlanta. They came up 6 inches short. Had a chance to beat Carolina. Too many turnovers and didn't force enough. And then New Orleans was an absolute gong show because they were in a 45-10 hole. When being in that hole, this is what many people were talking about on social media, and we talked about it on Lions Live on Fox Sports Detroit. Detroit trails 45-10 because Matthew Stafford in the third quarter throws a pick six to Marshawn Lattimore. I immediately said, and it was soon thereafter because he was getting drilled on a regular basis. He was wincing when he was throwing. He was slow to get up on every single play. And it wasn't because of the ankle that was causing him problems all week long. It was because of the pounding that he was taking, the ribs, the shoulder, the chest, wherever else it may be. You cannot win. This team cannot win without Matthew Stafford. Just like I don't think Green Bay is going to be able to win with Brett Hundley. Now, this kid out of UCLA might be a very good player. I'm not sure. I thought he was pretty damn good in college. That doesn't always translate. See Johnny Manziel. But here's the thing. Green Bay does not have a dominant defense. They're not dominant in special teams. And they're quite honestly not dominant in their ground attack either. They rely heavily on number 12. You could make the same case for your Detroit Lions. Now, that kind of flies in the face of contradiction here to a certain extent because the Lions' defense is the primary reason that this team won in its 3 victories anyway. But they're not healthy. Ziggy Ansah does not look like himself. Haloti Ngata is out for the season with a torn bicep. Jared Davis looks lost at times. They just lost Glover Quinn, and this is a team that is kind of spiraling out of control. That's why the bye week comes at a perfect time. But even when this defense was playing well, they're not dominant against the run. They're not dominant against the pass, and they don't get after the passer much with consistency at all. So this team is going to rely a lot on balance, takeaways, and togetherness. Now, Detroit's got 9 picks, man. They've got 14 takeaways. That's pretty damn good, all right? And Darius Slay had his third of the season Sunday against New Orleans. But going back to the Matthew Stafford thing, I thought for sure at 45-10, the game was over, just like many of you did, and I thought they should have pulled him. And it has nothing to do with the fact that Aaron Rodgers was there sacked by Anthony Barr or drilled by Anthony Barr, driven to the turf in Minnesota and out with a broken collarbone. I don't think coaches on the sideline, I don't think Jim Caldwell's got his headsets on. Jim Bob Cooter has his headsets on. Terrell Austin has their headsets on. And they click in like a second call for call waiting and say, by the way, I know we're entrenched in this game right here. Aaron Rodgers is lost for the season. I'm following Twitter right now while I'm trying to call plays, and I find out that the Packers have released the information. Aaron Rodgers could miss the rest of the season. He has a broken collarbone. Let's get Matthew Stafford out of there. No. I'm sure there's plenty of people on that sideline that had heard about Aaron Rodgers being injured, but I doubt many of them were playing in a Lions uniform because they're too busy worried about their assignments or their blown assignments against the New Orleans Saints. Would I have pulled Matthew Stafford at 45-10 and inserted Jake Rudock? Absolutely. Is it because Aaron Rodgers got hurt in Minnesota? No. It's because Matthew Stafford was getting the crap kicked out of him on a regular basis. It's because Detroit had no running game, and everybody in a New Orleans uniform knew what was going to happen. And therein lies another problem with Detroit's game plan. And it's not necessarily on Jim Bob Cooter per se, but I've said time and time and time again during these podcasts, on social media, on Lions Live, and with any conversation I may have. Matthew Stafford is elusive enough. He's athletic enough. He's nimble enough to get outside the pocket. They leave him in a spot that allows teams to know, I know where he's going to be. And they drill him. And what happened on Sunday? If he wasn't getting drilled, he was getting a pass deflected, a pass tipped by an offensive or a defensive lineman. He had 12 tipped passes. Folks, that's the most in the NFL in a long time, in a single game. The NFL record is 14. They were knocking on that proverbial door. And when you heard the Saints talk about why they were able to get so many tipped passes, the answers were obvious. We knew he had to get rid of it quick because their offensive line stinks. Rick Wagner got hurt on Sunday. They brought in Mahalik at one tackle, then shifted him to the other tackle when Wagner had to suck it up because Greg Robinson got hurt. Greg Robinson, you and I both know, is a below-average offensive lineman. I mean, think about it for a second. NFL teams don't get rid of left tackles. Greg Robinson was the second overall pick by the Rams. They let him go 4 years in because he isn't very good. Now, is he a decent backup? He could be. I wouldn't mind it if he had to come in for a play or two, I suppose. But day in and day out, week in and week out against these pass rushers, he's proven he cannot do the job. Thus, Taylor Decker is needed so desperately. But I need TJ Lang back just as much as I need Taylor Decker back. I need Kenny Golladay back just as I need Taylor Decker back. And I wouldn't mind having Dwayne Washington back in there, too, when I need a 3rd down and 1 carry. So that's what you're looking at right now. You're looking at a situation where Detroit is so beat up, and it's not an excuse, but so beat up, the bye comes at a perfect time. I would have taken Matthew Stafford out because of that situation and because everybody in that building knows he's getting the ball, even out of a shotgun. I mean, Rob Rubik and Lomas Brown brought it up on Lions Live last night. Even out of a pistol or shotgun formation, that's basically a 3 to 4 step drop. He's getting it and trying to get rid of it quickly, which leads me to a final point. Matthew Stafford needed to play better. He was not good enough against New Orleans, period. All right? He doesn't turn it over 5 times himself. Who knows? They may win that game. I'm not sure. Obviously, New Orleans knows what Detroit's offensive game plan is going to be. Get it and throw it. They sure as hell ain't going to run it. Not with those guys. Not with those guys up front. When you've got an offensive line that is that beat up, and you got an offensive line that many people don't even recognize, they don't. Tim Lolito was just signed this week or last week, and he had to play. Brian Mahalik, nobody knows who the hell that is. Emmett Cleary is 6'7", 315 pounds. He's your backup tackle, but he started at right guard. So I want you to think about that for a minute. You got Greg Robinson. You got Emmett Cleary. And you got to beat up Rick Wagner up front, in addition to Graham Glasgow and Travis Swanson. So you're not going to run the football behind those guys. It's just not happening. Everybody knows that. Tough to protect. That's why Zach Zenner's brought in to chip and try to help his quarterback a little bit. And then when his quarterback steps back, and I said this yesterday on Twitter, on social media, and you can follow me on at Shep Matt, the bottom line is wide receivers need to start winning some of these battles. And they're not. Detroit's getting all kinds of shallow routes, all right? All kind of square ins, little drags and things of that nature. How many times are they winning downfield? Marvin Jones had a man beat. Matthew Stafford overthrew him. That's on number 9. Marvin Jones made an unbelievable catch in the end zone. Incredible catch. Phenomenal. Darren Fells, I don't expect to win a whole lot of one-on-one battles. He's a big, strong tight end, but he doesn't gain a lot of separation. Eric Ebron, I expect to win. He can't hold on to the damn football. How many times do you and I look every Sunday and we're watching Lions wide receivers run open? It doesn't happen very often. You see it in Atlanta. You see it in Green Bay. You see it in Dallas. Where is it in Detroit? So if the wide receivers are having a hard time getting separation, you can't run the football, you're trying to get rid of it quickly because you can't pass protect, what do you think that defensive line for whoever the opposition is going to do. Of course, they're going to make an initial surge, and then they're going to jump because they know you are not going to get 4 seconds to throw the football. And even when you do, a lot of times your wide receivers are not winning one-on-one battles. You need Kenny Golladay in there. Eric Ebron needs to elevate his game somehow, some way. This offensive line needs to get healthy to protect. Otherwise, this is going to be one of the more disappointing seasons in recent memory. And not because at the beginning of the season, you and I thought they were going to go 12-4. I predicted 9-7. But because of what has taken place, Minnesota doesn't have their starting quarterback, Chicago's playing a rookie quarterback, and Green Bay now lost the best player at his position in the league, maybe the MVP of the NFL. That's what you have to worry about. Now, I was wrong, obviously, and I noted this on Twitter as well. I was wrong. We should all admit we were wrong that Matthew Stafford stayed in the game, made it interesting. Maybe you don't feel that is necessarily wrong. Just because you got a little bit more into the game, just because it became a little bit more interesting, and it did. Detroit got within one score. I mean, Jamal Agnew with an interception return. A'Shawn Robinson, phenomenal play. And I said this on Lions Live. Here's a guy, as a rookie out of Alabama in the second round last year, he was a jugs gun catching passes after practice and training camp. We all, members of the media, looked at each other and go, what is a defensive tackle doing? He caught 40 in a row. Haloti Ngata gives him a great deal of credit because he works at his craft. He's got quick hands. He was among the best in batted balls last year. Big play, right? Jamal Agnew, a hero to a certain extent, right? 2 bad faux pas. One on the punt return for a score, his second of the season, and the first Lions rookie to do that since 1951. He waves goodbye to a nearby New Orleans Saint special teamer. Immediate flag, and Detroit gets penalized 15 yards on the kickoff. Stupid, not necessary, grow up. Then he fields a punt inside the 5-yard line, and Detroit takes over at the 1. Now, it's not Jamal Agnew's fault that Matthew Stafford had a ball tipped, popped in the air, collected, and scored by Cameron Jordan. But it sure didn't put Detroit in a very good spot when they're down just 7. He's a big reason they pulled to within 7. He's also a big reason they were stuck in a big-time hole because of it. You got to learn, and I wish players would learn a little bit more to be unselfish in a situation like that. You want to celebrate. The NFL has brought celebrations back. Go ahead and celebrate. Dance till your heart's delight. Dance until the shoes come off, for crying out loud. Just don't use props. But why in the world are you doing it on the field to play? Stupid. Flat out stupid and undisciplined. A lot of this was being made yesterday, too. The Lions, for some reason or another, for a second consecutive game, come out and they are dominated early. And maybe dominated is not even the right word. They are unprepared. They're down 17-7 after 1. They're down 31-10 at the break. That is a team that is not prepared to play. And that's an issue. That's a serious problem. The late comebacks can be thrilling at times, but it's not something that you want to rely on, right? Hell no. Same thing happened against Carolina, for crying out loud. Carolina's up 17-10 at the break, but they were up big in that game before Detroit scored that touchdown in the second quarter, right? It's got to change. And it sure seems like this team is either mentally not there to start or taken aback by something that the opposition is doing. Shep Shower and Shave brought to you by Northwestern Tech. Northwestern Tech is the HVAC school. Get trained, certified, and into the field in only 10 and a half months. It's the HVAC school that works. Call them today, 248-358-4006. We're brought to you by Nate Knopf Designs. Find his work on Instagram or on Facebook. You also can go to his website at goldwellstudios.com. And Hungry Howie's, the Michigan-based pizza company known as the original flavored crust pizza. It has the best fundraiser around called Dough Raiser. Families eat pizza at least once a week, folks. So it's an easy sell. Go to doughraiser.com. Watching a little baseball yesterday, and I'm sure you're well aware the American League Championship Series is a 2-0 lead for Houston. It's now a 2-0 lead for the Dodgers in the National League Championship Series. And it is there because of Justin Turner. And Justin Turner is a phenomenal story. And really, the Dodgers story is phenomenal. 29 years to the day of Kirk Gibson's dramatic home run in the World Series against Dennis Eckersley and the Oakland A's. 29 years to the day, Justin Turner does the same thing to John Lackey and the Chicago Cubs. Justin Turner hits his first career walk-off homer. So Kirk Gibson, October 15th, 1988, trots out for Tommy Lasorda as a pinch hitter and hits a low breaking ball away from him over the right field wall to win the game for the Dodgers. He didn't have another at-bat in the series. Justin Turner, who says afterwards, you know what, my fondest memory of baseball was at my grandmother's house watching that celebrated pinch hit homer. And Turner does the same thing with a 3-run drive with 2 outs in the bottom of the 9th against John Lackey. Now, kudos to Justin Turner, who at one point I thought was the MVP of the National League. He cooled off a little bit when the Dodgers cooled off, but he is the primary reason. And we could talk about Corey Seager, Yasiel Puig, Cody Bellinger, Clayton Kershaw, whomever in a Dodgers uniform, all have contributed to a team that owns home field advantage because it's a team that won 104 games. Really impressive. But it's Justin Turner that really makes things go for this World Series contender. Not just because he hit that home run, but look at the numbers. Look at the record this team has with him in that lineup. My problem is with Joe Maddon. And Joe Maddon's a phenomenal manager. You know it, and so do I. You don't win a World Series with the Chicago Cubs by being a bad manager. He's organized a number of different things. Last year, a lot of question marks with Aroldis Chapman giving up the home run to Rajai Davis to make it a little bit more uncomfortable, and the Cleveland Indians pushing the Cubs to a Game 7 and all that other stuff. Here's my problem. Joe Maddon has one of the best arms in baseball in Wade Davis. And truly, one of the, not just as a closer, but one of the best arms in all of baseball. You saw what he did in the NLDS in helping his team to a key victory, right? Going 2 1/3 innings. It was special. It was impressive. And the Cubs got it done because of Wade Davis in that final game. Well, Joe, he's ready to go. Joe Maddon goes to John Lackey, 38-year-old, who pitched on consecutive days for the first time in his 15-year career. And he struggled to start. And as a manager, what you need to do is you need to put your team in the best situation it can be to give them a chance to win. Did Joe Maddon truly do that? Think of this. Think of this again. Justin Turner has batting .377 with 22 RBIs in his postseason career. Runners in scoring position. He's 13 for 18 in his career now. That's a .722 average, folks. He's 6 for 8 this year with runners in scoring position. He's got 10 RBIs in the Dodgers' 5 postseason games. 10 of them. And Joe Maddon decides, I'm going to go with John Lackey on consecutive days for the first time in his 15-year career, and a guy who's not even a bullpen guy anyway. More of a starter. And I'm going to leave. Remember when Buck Showalter did this with Baltimore? He left Zach Britton in the bullpen. Everybody remembers that, right? That was one of the biggest question marks. And everybody, this is what I mean about watching Brad Ausmus on a daily basis, where Brad Ausmus is questioned with a lot of the decisions that he makes. And rightfully so. He should be. All managers should be. Look, they know exactly the deal, that they're going to be second-guessed on a number of things. Buck Showalter did it last year in the wild card game. All right? And what does he do? He's got Zach Britton ready to go. And he decides, I'm going to leave the guy who has not been beaten one time, not blown a save, and I'm going to leave him in the bullpen. And what did it do? It ended up costing the Orioles their season, or their game, which turns out to be their season. And even Buck Showalter said, hey, he was fine. It's ridiculous. Simply ridiculous. I mean, Zach Britton had 47 saves that year. He had a .54 ERA. He was in the running for the Cy Young. And what does Buck Showalter do? I don't know. I mean, he decides to Ubaldo Jimenez? I mean, give me a break. It was ridiculous. I mean, his comments were, no one has been better pitching for us than Ubaldo. Really? Okay. Gives up 2 singles, then a home run to Edwin Encarnacion. If no one's been pitching better than Ubaldo Jimenez, what has Zach Britton been doing? Can Ubaldo Jimenez have a better ERA than .54 and 47 saves? Hard for people to admit, again, I was wrong. Buck Showalter was flat out wrong a year ago in the wild card game. Joe Madden was wrong. Flat out wrong. You give John Lackey the call over an all-star closer? And what does he do? Lackey comes on, 6 pitches, he walks Chris Taylor. And then you get Justin Turner going yard. Madden's comment afterward, he wanted to save Davis for a potential save on the road. You can't get to the save situation if you give up the run in the 9th. You want to bring him in to face Chris Taylor? Okay, I get it. Why not bring Davis in to face Turner and get the key out and give your team a chance to bat in the top of the 10th? To me, it made no sense. To me, it was a move and is a move that is being and should be ridiculed. But I wonder how many Tiger fans are taking note, too. Because you probably didn't stay up and watch that game. Maybe you're watching Denver and the Giants. How? I don't know, because that was pretty boring. But maybe that's what you were watching. Or maybe you just decided, you know what, the Tigers aren't in the playoffs. I'm not into baseball anymore. I'm not going to watch it. And therein lies the difference between some of you and me. I'm a baseball fan and a Tigers fan. Many of you are just Tigers fans. So you're only going to watch the Tigers. And you're going to only ridicule what Tigers players, managers, and general managers do. And I'm not saying you don't have a right to do that, because you do. And after stomaching what you had to deal with this year and this Tigers team, you have every right to complain. You should complain. I want you to complain. I just want you also to have a certain perspective. And that perspective is, last year people viewed Buck Showalter as one of the best managers in baseball. And he made a faux pas in the most important game for his team that season. This year, you could make the argument, until that Game 5 win in the NLDS, you could make the argument that Joe Madden made a massive faux pas in the biggest game of his team season. I know, Game 5 against the Nationals, I get it. And he was really good. And he pushed all the right buttons. He went with Wade Davis and he said, I know you've never pitched more than 2 innings in a save situation, but today you are. I'm going to write it. I'll guarantee you there will be a time in the near future a Tigers fan will call up some sports radio station and say this. Just give him a 2-inning save. Joe Madden's done it before. Sure he has. My hope is whoever is taking that phone call, whoever is having that conversation with the fan, should also say, all right, well, Joe Madden also bypassed that all-star closer, bypassed one of the best closers in all of baseball, and left him out of a bottom-of-the-ninth situation and went with John Lackey instead. And it resulted in Justin Turner's home run to center field. Remember that. My point is, managers oftentimes make mistakes, not just the guy in the Old English D. This has been Shep, Shower, and Shave. We're brought to you by Hungry Howie's, by Northwestern Tech, and by Nate Knopf Designs. Please support our sponsors. And thanks for listening to Shep, Shower, and Shave.